back to the fourth Elets Pharma Leadership Summit. Post an enlightening inaugural session with prominent industry thought leaders, we now move ahead to our first panel discussion on technological disruptions in pharma, leveraging data for actionable insights. Joining us today to delve deeper into this subject, we are pleased to welcome Dr. Alpesh Pathak, Senior Vice President, Global IP Head, Intas Pharmaceuticals. Welcome, Dr. Pathak. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Anil
Thank you.
Gidwani, Director, Dana Pharmaceuticals. Welcome, Mr. Gidwani. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. Krishna Sai T, Associate Vice President IT, Biocon Limited. Welcome, Mr. Sai. Thank you so much for joining us. And Mr. Gopinath Madhu, Senior
Hi,
Client
morning.
Partner. Mr. Gopinath Madhu, Senior Client Partner, Digital and Technology, Pfizer, who will be moderating this session. Welcome, Mr. Gopinath. The session will explore the need and importance of making use of data to chart out the roadmap of the future, putting technology at the forefront. Over to you, Mr. Gopinath, to steer the discussions forward.
Thanks very much, and thanks to all the panelists. And I'm delighted to be part of this discussion. So maybe I'll kind of initiate the discussions and then probably pose certain questions to the panelists here, and you can hear some insights around how data can kind of play a pivotal role in the pharma sectors in terms of providing very I would say impactful insights and also some actionable items that can be got of top, right? So pharma being very focus oriented in terms of how we can impact patients' lives, and data plays a very key role, right? So right from our field colleagues in terms of nudging out certain actionable insights, be it on the field side or gathering certain real world evidences on identifying certain geographical locations, on reaching out to patients, target oriented needs to the patients, or in terms of engaging key target HCPs as well, identifying their specialists, their target areas, and how do we reach out to them. Data plays a very pivotal role, and even from an organizational perspective as well, right? So to the leads, to the commercial people, how are the performance across, getting those market insights as well, right? So how are performing? So data, kind of plays a very pivotal role. So keeping this in mind, I would probably slightly, get focused around how we leverage it and how data in the pharmaceutical sector is leading towards in the future roadmap. So with this in mind, so probably I can, post a question which I think panel kind of share their thoughts. So with that being said, probably Krishna Sai, how usage of business intelligence by pharmaceutical companies helps in developing intelligent solutions quickly to tackle individual challenges of the industry. So how do you see it from your standpoint? So do you want to maybe quickly share?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Gopinath. I think the data, as such, the term, which has become very huge in the last, let's say 4, 5, 6 years, which wherein the organization started transforming from an paper-based organization to an electronic-based data. Talking about starting from your sales onward to your supply chain, further on to your manufacturing. Right. So at each of these nodes, we are now at a place where we are sitting with a huge amount of data. Right. So as all of us know that sales and marketing, that the front end part was there from earlier onwards. There were CRM systems. There were the data was getting collected, and it used to analyze the kind of product penetration or the kind of segmentation, what customer, product, region. So those were the standard kind of analysis or the kind of analytics which we used to develop, let's say 10 years back or 15 years back, which used to give visibility to the marketing heads or even to COOs or CEOs. But now the dimension, or at least what I am seeing in the last 3-4 years, is there's a lot of data which is internal now, right? which is coming from your manufacturing or your quality. Once you started implementing your MES kind of systems or your LIMS kind of systems, which then started generating data of your the manufacturing data, how the batch is going on certain parameters, or your golden batch concept, whatever we have, which is the parameters which has been effective for you to deliver the golden batch. So those are the data now sitting on your systems, whether it is MES or, like I said, LIMS or the QMS systems. Now, getting an analytics out of that is, or at least has been the focus, at least for us in the last 4 or 5 years. So now, how do you correlate the kind of yield what you are getting for that specific batch, the golden batch, what I was talking about? Are those parameters the which parameters are impacting your golden batch? If you do the comparison between the same product, or the another dimension what we also worked on is the same product getting manufactured in 2 3 sites, right? There are different dimensions which are coming out saying that, okay, this product is doing better in certain site, given all the let's say the compliance angles as such, right? So that's, and then coming to the quality part of it, the product quality, right? So when you wanted to get into deeper of your root cause analysis or your deviations, what are coming as a trend, right? You see that a certain product is leading to a deviation in general, right? Because of the raw material which is coming in from X vendor. It is bound to have the probability of getting into a deviation is more because of the historical data. Those are the ones which we are now trying to give to the quality team, saying that, okay, if you are getting the raw material from this A vendor, probability that it might lead to this, or this is a test which might fail, right? And you put more focus onto that, or you have your backup plan ready, whatever it is. So this is on the quality side of it. Then the big one, what I saw now, the change is on the compliance side of it. Any compliance to that matter, right? So anything with respect to your regulations which are coming in day by day. Obviously, we are all on the GMP kind of environment. So that GMP environment is getting stringent day by day, and even the audits are now focusing on your electronic data, what kind of restrictions you have. So to get that more compliant, so if you think about the concepts of quality by design or those kind of things, the the inputs what we give to the leaders based on the data, like I said, the MES data or the LIMS data, that is helping them to fix the problems at the root, at the beginning of it, right? So which will not allow you to further lead on to the issues as such. Anyway, the analytics, the core analytics from the beginning was already there in the financial area. Like I said, sales and finance was like already given, right? The new dimension what I am now getting is onto the quality and compliance and the manufacturing. I think these are the three new areas which are coming in. Stitching this all together and getting onto your enterprise level analytics, right? So your overall analytics strategy, whatever you define at the highest level, linking that to the KPIs to each department or to individual, and further drilling down to the actual transaction of it. You pick the transaction from your ERP system or from your MES system or from your LIM system. These disparate systems getting onto one central place, whether you call that as a data lake or data warehouse or whatever it is, one common place, stitching all this together and giving the visibility has definitely has been the focus for us. I think that is going to be there for another whatever till the time the organizations get matured enough. I think each of us will be in different stages, but that will continue to happen. Is this is what is my initial thoughts on this, Gopi. You are on mute, Gopi.
Oh, sorry, once again. No, I'm okay. So very rightly said, Sai. Yeah, in fact, see, if you look at current pharmaceutical trends, right? So we, uh, so so if you take back 5 years from now, or maybe 5 years down the line, or 5 years prior to it, we were actually not having much of a data repository on our side. Rather,
Yeah.
we depend on data from outside third party. But pharmaceutical companies have now started building our own data lake. So, which is what you call it as data warehouse. And more
Yeah.
so also from a manufacturing standpoint as well. And that's really, something that we are actually working towards. So keeping that inside, and not from a manufacturing, but even from a patient engagement or even from an HCP engagement standpoint as well, right? So we are now looking at providing kind of an omni-channel experience to HCPs today. That's our
Yeah.
key, thought process that we have started looking at, especially, right? So there are multiple channels that we start engaging with HCPs, right? So today
Right.
we look at social media, we look at HCP communities, we run through promotional initiatives. But how do we give that omni-channel experience? I think that's where, with a lot of data that we have, I think pharmaceutical companies are actually moving towards that direction. So, in the
Sure.
same sense, on the manufacturing piece, probably I'll also maybe take Dr. Alpej also. So, how do you see future pharmaceutical industries leveraging, data in changing their organizational strategies? How do you see, Dr. Alpej? You're on mute.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's audible now.
Very much. Yeah,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think it's a thank you, Gopi, and this is a wonderful panel. Krishna has given some very good thought of it. So future strategies, if you look at it, see, first of all, as one of the very important industrialists has told that data is new oil now. Data is very important from a pharmaceutical industry. If you start, let's say, drug discovery itself is a very important aspect where the database and artificial intelligence and throughput of the data, suppose if you are working on a target oriented disease, now that disease is working on one particular receptor. Now, in order to find out that what kind of compound, I'm getting little technical because perhaps so suppose if there is one particular structure of a compound which is responsible for targeting a receptor, you will have millions of compounds. So in order to find out that the affinity of one particular structure to one particular receptor, it's the data. It's called structure activity relationship. So in the pharmaceutical cycle, the data importance starts from drug discovery. If you move up the ladder, you will have preclinical studies. Again, you will have lot of in vitro and in vivo data required for preclinical. There also now there is a disruption that there is a lot of data which is generated on an organ basis or on a species basis. So if you have a structure which you have identified, that which structure is now bind to this particular receptor, you can immediately throughput on those structures on the preclinical part, and you can find out that out of 22,000 compounds which you have gone through the first level, this 11 or 12,000 compound will pass through the in vivo or initial preclinical studies. Then you have a large patient pool. Now, in order to put the drug onto the patient, you need to have a patient collection data. So again, we are moving to a data collection of patient. If you are working on a cancer trial on one particular, let's say, ovarian cancer or an intestinal cancer, you need to have a patient pool. So if you want to put your drug into 3,000, 4,000 patients, you need to have that patient pool, and you will have to again run through. Once the drug comes to the market, then I think Dr. Krishna has very rightly narrated that quality, manufacturing, and all those aspects are important, where you need to have a data and artificial intelligence. Now, in fact, in future, the artificial intelligence and IoT will play an important role. Well, I can say we have one of the largest plant in the Asia built in Ahmedabad, and almost 85% of the operations we are doing based on AI and IoT. Right from the manufacturing aspects, when the drug goes to quality through warehouse, from warehouse based on the order, it picks the data, and then you will have how much percentages OI, how much percentage of quality is missed. All those are based on the aspects. That is from the manufacturing and research part. If you see in the marketing, again, you will have a data pool. For the post marketing studies, you will have a list of doctors which you are catering to. If your product is for endocrinologist, you need your team needs to have how much endocrinologist, out of these endocrinologists, how much doctors are prescribing that. So the future strategies will be only by analyzing data, charting the data, whether you are in a human resource, whether you are in a quality department, whether you are in a research department. You know, I am basically a global IP head of Intas Pharma. So even by analyzing patents, we use a lot of database which are AI based, which are IoT based, because we need to do a lot of prior art search. If you want to come out with a new innovation, you need to first understand what is the prior art. So even for understanding and analyzing those prior art, we use AI for prior art. Now in the next 5 years, biotechnology will take over. You need to have a lot of monoclonal antibodies. Over monoclonal antibodies, you have a gene therapy. Now people are talking about CRISPR. CRISPR is basically nothing but a gene editing. A blind person can also see with this one injection which alter your gene, due to which you are blind. So the gene therapy in future, but all those gene therapies are nothing but they are analyzing your data and they are identifying a mix of the products which can cater those gene deficiency. So that's the next 5 years in my opinion. But again, apart from the science and research, data will play a very very important role in defining the future strategies, irrespective of the department of the pharma industry. You must have seen a lot of track and trace issues nowadays. The regulatory agency will pick a one particular pill, and just by scanning the barcode, you will have to analyze that the product was manufactured in which batch, in which plant, on which time, what is the expiry. So that level of data management is required, and that is required by the regulatory agencies. So there also the data management is very very important. So I'm sure the all next 5 years will be the data management and putting into AI and IoT into your place of manufacturing, quality, research, and then take the science to a next level. Yesterday I was going through one very important drug delivery system, which very interestingly goes to the intestine, and then in intestine the device opens up and there the injection is given to intestinal wall. So we normally, the doctor gives injection to our hand. Now this particular swallowing tablet will go to our intestine, open up the tablet, and then the spring will open and give the injection to our intestinal wall, and then it is biodegradable. So through intestinal wall, the injection part will be biodegradable, so it will go out. So we are now talking about, but all this can only be possible through robotics, AI, and IoT. So I echo the points of Dr. Krishna. So next 5 years will be very crucial for pharma industry, and there the data charting and collating everything to put together and making something very very innovative will be a very important way. Thank you, Gopi.
Very much, and very rightly said. So, if I have to pick up a couple of points over that, is one thing that at least the pharmaceutical industry is rightly kind of moving towards is AI, ML, and completely into kind of an automation, right? So, if I can start, probably even at a HR level, you would see people are trying to kind of come up with some sort of a sentimental analysis, which is nothing but leveraging the AI data. So today, if you send a survey, no one would look at it. But if you kind of give them a nudge and then give them a personalized and then kind of addressed by the mode, people would kind of tend to react to it, right? So that is something that we are kind of leaning towards, not only in the HR sector, but as a pharma as a whole. Even for sales field colleagues today, predictive analytics is something that has kind of opened the path as such, right? So we can kind of, with the volume of data that we have, we can kind of predict and then say, as simple as saying, okay, if I place an order for some stockist today, I can predict and then say that there may be returns for the stockist, 6 months down the line or 1 month down the line. So that kind of prediction is also, something that we kind of relate towards with the volume of data that we have. So keeping this in a similar, lines of it. So maybe Anil, if I have to maybe ask you, how can a big data revolutionize our pharma R&D? So would you be able to provide some insights around that? Uh, Anil, you are on
Point.
mute. Yeah, please.
I would surely agree with Dr. Alpesh that data is the new oil, as he rightly said, and biopharma data is probably the new potential blockbuster. So much data is coming up that it has become like a exponential growth in the data. And now the objective is to apply analytics techniques and other things to bring it to a predictable analysis. You know, the data in the pharma area is basically in the labs, R&D. As you rightly said, we'll come into the detail of R&D. Clinical trials, regulatory sensors are there on the machines, on various things, on the shipments and the goods which you send. There are now smart pills which are called as also digital pills, which go inside the body, and then you can detect everything sitting on the mobile. you know then there are devices, medical safeties are observed, health records in the manufacturing data, supply chain data, sales, marketing, social media. So many data is surrounding the atmosphere that it is very important now to have that predictive analysis out of it. you know so lot of techniques need to be applied. As regard R&D is concerned, the biggest challenge in life sciences which we are facing today is basically the dwindling drug pipeline. The pipeline of the new drugs is reducing, and basically the patients, you know, uh, are also having newer diseases. As rightly recently, COVID has also made us very challenging, and in COVID, the R&D which was done on the data on SARS, MERS, and other things, and out of that they could come out with remdesivir. You know, and this remdesivir was very effective and very useful in the COVID situation. So how the data is really, this data is coming in the form of homogeneous kind of the mixed data from functions, from various departments, and everything has to be collated and done. you know and we need to focus on this. The idea is to increase the pipeline of drugs. So in R&D, you have already done, many companies have already done some R&D, and we are probably doing a lot of repetitive works also many places. you know so what I suggest is we need to expedite the R&D process, and in order to do that, all these data have to be accumulated and analyzed, so that whatever has been done, a repetition time is not wasted in the repetition. you know these data should be, even I would suggest there, if there could be a common data centralized pool, like you have phase 1 trial, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 trials. Maybe the phase in vitro trials, once it is done, it should be in a common pool available at a value which one can pay and take that thing and progress to the second step. you know because what is happening is individual companies are doing their own individual R&Ds and all, and each one is starting from the same place, looking at 10,000 molecules, trying to come out with few good molecules, then go ahead and try to pinpoint to a particular thing, then do the clinical trial. So what I feel is there is a lot of need to have some kind of pool system, where R&D can be assessed to a certain level, so that if you already crossed level 1, 2, 3, now I want to start from level 4, I should be able to have some access of level 1, 2, 3, so that I don't waste my time in repeating, but I can pay for it, you know. So I feel that kind of synergy has to come into this data sharing, you know, where it should not be a proprietary kind of thing. It should be little bit sharing. And of course, there is a revenues or profits or whatever comes also would be sharing little bit, you know. So there is a new way to, I feel, to look at these things. Similarly, in clinical trials, also there are too many datas, large scale of datas, patients' datas, and lot of operational efficiencies have to be brought into those areas. You know, so maybe some predictive analysis, simulation techniques, and other things need to be applied so that things can be better, so that the predictive modeling and insights could help with the lot of investigations and other things. So I feel these are the things we need to look. I think others can also give more opinion probably.
Yeah, very much, very much. I think very thoughtful insight, right? So on the similar lines, right? With current, we've kind of slightly moving out of the pandemic situation. So though there are still cases, but pandemic has actually taught pharmaceutical industry in terms of how we leverage technology, right? So if you look at it, it's a traditional way of visiting the HCPs, or even conducting certain webinars was like a tradition, right? So during the pandemic, that has really taught us in terms of how do we do a virtual interaction or virtual you know uh, consultations, etc. Right? So you would have seen a very spike in the pandemic. Like people have kind of leaned towards moving into technology and taking up teleconsultations, even tele diagnostics, wherein people can actually do certain diagnostics virtually as well, right? So we've kind of moved into that part, right? So and especially if you look at it, pharmaceutical actually taking that into the direction. So maybe Sai, how would you see with this changing in the pharmaceutical industry, how would technology charting a new course of pharma sector? What are the key data disruptions likely to transform the pharma organizations as such? What do you see as a key data disruptions in the pharma sector?
Right. So I think, see, like I said, there is a transformation going on with respect to data, right? Internal, external, whatever data which is already available. The more and more data, I think there were already publicly available data like your prescription data or your IMS data or the IQVIA data. So those are the ones which were already available. We all of us were subscribing and then getting that. So now I think that model will still continue to be there. So which is the primary patient or the kind of prescription data. The more what I feel is the internal part of it, which I've factored earlier as well, right? And correlating these two, I think the main challenge has been correlating these two and giving the insights out of it was the way which I feel which is going to come. And the second or the main change what I'm anticipating is this self-driven kind of analytics, right? So gone are those days where from an IT or a technology part of it, I reach to a CXO and then say, okay, tell me what analytics you require, right? I think gone are those days. When I approach the CXOs or any of these senior leaders, they say, okay, we don't know, right? What report I did, I don't know. You show me the data, right? By seeing that, at that time I will then think and then tell me, okay, relate these two and give me one insight, right? So that's the kind of ad hoc requests which are coming out, and that is where I think the kind of analytics will move towards, where we enable the users, or may not be all the users, may the core users or the kind of leaders, where we give them the platform and then say that, okay, now you drag drop and these two, correlate these two, and then give you the insights, right? And that will be ad hoc, and it may or may not be a requirement down the line after a month. So we are now moving towards an area where, we take some 3 months, 6 months to get one analytics project out of it, right? Where we define the requirements, go through the development, and finally deliver it. By the time we deliver after 6 months, the entire dimensions have changed, right? So the change what I am seeing now is more towards dynamic, self-driven. Give the platform, let users build on their own, but obviously it has to get matured. And users, I think someone has put the question in the from the audience as well, that what kind of talent you need, right? So this is a kind of different talent what we are looking at, the data scientists, or the kind of that talent is what is required, where they can think through that something what is going to come out. And if even if it is not clear now, you create the entire universe and let the analytics build on its own. I think that's what I feel is going to be changed, Gopi.
Very rightly said. I know with the change in the business model, right? So every quarter, I would say there would be a change in the business model and the way they look at it. So the leadership looks at it in a different model, and the insights would be completely different at any point in time, right? So today, based on whatever revenue the model would be different, but tomorrow, maybe a few months down the line, it'll be completely different. So data modelers, as you rightly said, or a data scientist is key. And the people who would come out would be really looking at providing a dynamic rather than a static oriented.
Correct.
And personalization, again, this personalization is one of the key, right? So wherein you don't want to bombard data to the people, rather than give them what they need and understand their lookout and their insights, and then to be able to build a personalized is very key. Very good thought. So moving ahead, I think there's one more pointers that have come in, I think, on the chat as well. Can an analytics enabled omni-channel commercial model can elevate healthcare practitioners management? So maybe Dr. Alpesh, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So here it's very important, So what is analytical enable omnichannel commercial model? It is basically you are feeding a data from a various channels. For example, a patient has a history, right? History is already put inside the hospital. When he goes next time to the doctor, and when he prescribes a particular medicine, the data will immediately tell them that no, he is allergic to this medicine because the 3 months before when he was prescribed, it was this reaction. So this is not acceptable. So when you actually put the data from a different channel, the analytics will analyze the data and give you a populated results. And as an expert, you will have to pick and choose the result. I give you another example. In a chemistry lab, a scientist, when he does the experiment for making a product, he puts 4 or 5 different kind of reactions, right? And then he analyzes the results. Now we have an AI based reaction optimizer. So what he does is that he puts the parameters of reaction inside the optimization. So in the lab, he puts the experiment and he puts the same parameter in the analyzer. So if he does 5 different kind of reaction, and if he also inputs the results, the analyzer itself will give, why don't you optimize, you have used this particular solvent to this level in the fifth experiments when you have used, so why don't you optimize the solvent and this parameter, the temperature should be of this, and then he puts the sixth experiment. Based on this five, the AI has given you the sixth, and I can bet the sixth result will be much, much better. So this is basically an omni-channel data analyzer, and this is the way forward, in my opinion. Thank you.
Very good, very good, very rightly said. And maybe I'll add on to it. So, from an omnichannel engagement, if you're looking at from an HCP standpoint, right? Uh, so we deal with HCPs in different modes, as I said earlier as well, right? So we connect with them through social media, we connect with them through webinars, we connect with fields connecting with the HCPs, and at times we also use SEO via Google, right? So there are different ways in which we connect with HCPs, but in order to get that customer 360 view in terms of what channels that we leverage with HCPs and which channels are something that we kind of need to look out at. So that's where this data plays a very pivotal role. Right? So if we are able to get these data from different sources and to be able to analyze what channels actually fits and where are HCPs kind of moving towards, leaning towards. So those behaviors, if you are able to get, I think that's where pharmaceutical industries are trying to move towards, right? So to identifying those behaviors where these HCPs are driven to, and we focus, and then we kind of then touch base specifically to those behaviors with the HCPs. So very, very rightly said. I think data as such is a key role within the pharma, and especially where we deal with in terms of manufacturing our products to save patients lives. We Data plays a key pivotal role, and I also points toward in terms of sharing data, where I think Anil has rightly pointed out, right? So where we have patients data, though pharmaceutical industry doesn't have, but we work with third party to kind of come up with these patients data and how to be. So if you're able to create that environment where we kind of share those data and to be able to collate, I think that is the next revolutionary is what I would kind of put it across, right? So I think if you're able to get, I think that's where our big success would be at a, not only for a company as such, but an overall, leaning towards at a country level as well, right? So keeping this, I think I have one more which I think would like to point out is. I think Anil has already touched on a similar point on how can data science be used for drug discovery to be better prepared for a future pandemic-like scenarios. Like have we've been through that pandemic, but how can data science be used in order to kind of maybe slightly future focused around, and how do we kind of work towards to be able to deal with these pandemic scenarios? So how can data science kind of augment to drug discovery? Would you be able to maybe take this out?
Yeah. Is this the question to me, or shall I
Yes,
take?
Anil.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Basically, as we have seen during the COVID times, today every common man was aware that how many people are dying, how many people are in quarantine, how many people are there in the uh, COVID stage with different stages, and even state wise, even city wise. The data was so vast and it was available to the common man. You know, Similarly, I would little bit touch on the previous topic, health practitioners. In India, we have a little setback. Our health practitioners are mostly GP level who practice individually. You know, that's why, and those are where less computer driven or they just write a prescription which is unreadable probably, and hardly a data could be understood. But if those people, health practitioners, can be made compulsory to put the data on a computer for every patient which is visited, you know and then we also have a patient pen drive or something like that. So the patient gets a pen drive where his whole history is there, you know, right? Maybe from childhood till he is 80, you have the data on the pen drive. So if he goes to any doctor, any hospital, he doesn't have to worry that he has to go only to this doctor, or he has to go to only this hospital because he was treated there. Today he may be in India, tomorrow he is there in Africa. Still, the pen drive would work for him. So the idea is, if his data is put into that drive and he takes it across, any doctor could read those data and analyze it, rather than going through the paper files and files he has to carry everywhere. So this would surely even create a huge database of the patients in India. Like today, malaria is going on. So people would automatically come to know that malaria is rampant currently, or typhoid is rampant, or whatever. I'm to say, lot of these data could be collated and put it. So it would be helpful for the pharmaceutical companies. It would be helpful for the hospitals, you know, because 90% of the time you go to the hospital, they will run you through all the tests. You know, you do HIV, you do this, you do that. I'm to say, before they really give you anything, they just want to be safe. Secondly, the hospitals don't share the data. Even if the patient is sleeping there, his relative wants to see the data, they don't share this data. So this hospital should be, data should go into a common pool. you know so there should be some guidelines from the government or something to put this data on a common platform. This common platform could be checked by anybody at a pay service kind of thing. you know So everybody gets the information. Today, a pharmaceutical company wants to launch a particular drug for maybe osteoporosis. He doesn't know how many osteoporosis cases are there in the India, in the world. All the data, especially India, you don't have much data. Abroad it is all recorded. So we need to start those recordings and other things. I'll give you a small example for exports. What used to do, we used to export a lot of capsules, and it used to go into reefer vessels and all. you know so what we did is we put sensors on it, you know to check the temperatures at various during the 36 days which it is going in the sea. We found the data, and we found, then we went on increasing the thermocol padding on the 6 sides, 4 sides initially, then 6 sides, and the thickness of the thermocol went on changing. you know Today we don't use reefer vessel for capsules. Still, many of the companies are still doing reefer vessels, but we don't use reefer vessels. But what we have done is we use thick thermocols which have been based on the data, you know that from the shipment point till it reached the other factory in Africa, whether the temperatures were correct or not. you know so we get inside temperature, you get in outside temperature. All this data leads to a lot of saving of cost. you know so there is a lot of implications which can be benefited from a data. You see, the same thing today you look at from different angles. A company like Farm Easy, 1 milligram, or whatever online pharmacies, the amount of data they are generating, you know, this data is going to be enormous. If today, unfortunately, prescription drugs are not much sold on this, but if tomorrow, if it becomes with a prescription and everything, proper monitoring and tracking and tracing and everything, if these can be done, I'm going to say we will be in a more predictive mode. I can predict that tomorrow there will be so many people suffering from diabetes. So many people will be having this problem, that problem. If I can predict, I will not be wasting medicines. The medicines will not go expired. You see, so a lot of savings on the expiry could take place. So a lot of things are still pending. A lot of innovations is possible. A lot of disruption is possible in these areas. Yeah.
Very good, very good. I would probably take on a very valid point that you've touched base with. which is coming up with a patient ecosystem, right? I think one of the key factors today, which we are kindly not up to our mark, is each hospital, each clinic has its own patient database with the patient history. But if you're able to create a patient ecosystem wherein if someone goes to either a clinic or a hospital or to a different geography region, you have that history at one place where I can kind of, get through all my history and to be able to, directly look at what my prescriptions are, what my tests are. That will kind of one cut out the normal tests that they do, and also it will pave way for a new discovery as well, right? So with the patient ecosystem, you kind of come up with new patient with a new drug discovery based on the data that you have set in. So I think that's very valid point that you've kind of touched base with. Good point. So I think we are almost done with the questions. Maybe anything on the chat? Let me do a quick check. I don't see anything on the chat as such. So, Elets team, any other questions coming in from the viewers?
No, I think we got just these two questions, and I think the panel has, very aptly and very insightfully responded to them. So I think I'd like to thank our esteemed speakers who would join us amidst their busy schedules and share their vision and insights about the pharma sector and of course the road ahead, keeping data into perspective. We would like to apprise our August gathering and to our delegates about two of our upcoming in-person events scheduled for the month of June. We will be organizing the 10th Healthcare Innovation Summit on the 22nd and the 23rd of June at Eros Hotel, New Delhi. We will also be having a parallel event, which is the third Radiology and Imaging Summit, also on the 22nd and the 23rd of June at Eros Hotel, New Delhi. So we invite all our, speakers, esteemed speakers, to join us during these events. And as a small token of appreciation and your presence, please accept these certificates on behalf of us. Thank you, Mr. Gopinath Madhu, for wonderfully moderating this session with our panelists here. Thank you so much for your presence.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I in fact, even I was able to learn certain things from a manufacturing piece of it from our panelists. So thanks a lot. Thanks to all the
Thank you,
speakers.
sir. Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Anil Idmani, Director, Dana Pharmaceuticals. It's always a pleasure to hear you, sir, and to listen to your, varied experiences, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Mr. Krishna Saiti, Associate Vice President IT, Biocon Limited. Thank you so much, sir. It was insightful. It was a learning experience, listening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Dr. Alpesh Pathak, Senior Vice President, Global IP Head, Intas Pharmaceuticals. Thank you so much, sir. Wonderful thoughts and wonderful insights. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today at the Pharma Leadership Summit. Thank you.
Bye-bye.